Hey, you guys, it's Chappie from Task Force 70. We're here with episode 8. Today, I'm super excited. We have one of my favorite cops. Don't tell him I said anything. We have Erick Gelhaus on from Cougar Mountain Solutions, and he's also the editor of American Cop Magazine, which is still one of my favorite cop magazines. If you're too young as a cop to remember American Cop in paper form, and everybody waiting around and briefing for it to pass around, or more importantly, if you are too young to have listened to Art Bell live while you are on shift, you're a young cop. So anyway, today on the Task Force 70 Foundation podcast, we're going to talk about some stuff that's really important to both Erick and I. So we're going to talk about priority life stuff. We're going to talk about the benefits and declinations of personal equipment versus agency equipment, and we're going to talk about red dots on pistols. Um, and our take probably won't surprise anybody, but Erick, as you guys will find, is intellectual enough to be able to actually articulate why we prefer red dots for patrol work, especially. And the less a guy trains, probably Eric will, I'm sure, has an opinion. Uh, Needs a red dot more than a guy who shoots a lot. So anyway, Erick Gelhaus is the proprietor of the Cougar Mountain Solutions training group. He travels all over teaching cops primarily. He does some open enrollment stuff. And he's also the editor of American Cop Magazine. And he's got a bunch of other connections. He's in the tribe, so um, knows everybody, etc. To get the disclosure stuff out of the way, Erick and I have known each other for a long time, since Art Bell was on the air, and we've trained together, worked together, etc. for a long time. So save your BS comments about how it's one of us is a shill for the other one. Yeah, we're friends and we've known each other for a long time. So anyway, without any further ado, I'll bring Erick on. He can introduce himself far better than I can, and then we can start the discussion. So Erick, if you don't mind, for the folks who I love
So if
that.
you want to talk dated material, not
Right?
dated bad, but historical stuff, right? If you want to talk
Exactly.
when police marksman was around the first time,
Right. Exactly.
you might be
Exactly.
John. Thank
Exactly.
you for the kind words.
Yeah.
So like a lot of guys in the industry, I had prior military time.
Hmm.
I was infantryman from the Cold War into the early part of the global war on terror.
Hmm.
Did 29 years as a cop out in Northern California at a good sized sheriff's office out there.
Hmm.
We're at our biggest about 300 LE sworn to something in the jail.
Hmm.
Worked patrol, community policing, gang suppression, narcotics, use of force instructor, FTO, eventually promoted to sergeant, ran several of those programs. Um, went through a number of critical incidents, both as the primary officer and as an officer on scene.
Hmm.
Along the way, started writing, mostly because of the encouragement of our friend Pat, mutual friend Pat,
Hmm.
and continued that. Thanks to folks' tax dollars, my GI Bill paid for me to go back to school and not only get a bachelor's, but a master's. And what I found when I went back for my master's was my complaints about there not being good cop science
Hmm.
were unfounded. There was. The problem was you had to get behind the academic wall to find it.
Yep.
So, in a nutshell, that's my stuff. My time off the road was on a narcotics task force,
Hmm.
not off the road doing admin stuff. So that's
Right.
my background.
That's awesome. I really appreciate you making time to come on. I know how many hats you're wearing right now, and I really appreciate you coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Uh, yeah, so I mean, you already know this. The viewer might not. The one of the three mission pillars of the foundation is creating the academic think tank necessary for patrol, particularly small agency patrol. because you're absolutely right. Those guys, I discovered a whole world when I went through grad school. I discovered a whole world of great information that nobody else could see.
Yeah.
Like it's there's a giant amount of pretty good social science, especially in available in the law enforcement world that could really drive a lot of not only policy but SOPs and training curriculums that just nobody can see. So I think it's great that you brought that up. For the foundation. Our first Patrol Institute program will probably launch publicly next week. You already know about it, but so guys, that this is my very professional segue to say, please come give $20 a month donation. You not only assist us in that, but we're giving away stuff every month to the $20 a month monthly donors. Like this month, we're giving away rifles and rare Blue Force gear kit and some really good bourbon and things like that. So hit us up at tf70.org/donate. So anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt your introduction, Eric, but it was a good segue. So, and I'm still learning how to broadcast. So there's that.
I won't tell anyone.
Right. I appreciate that very much. So the first thing I wanted to talk to you about and get your perspective on is the concept of the fundamental understanding beginning on day one, but especially in small agency patrol, because they have such fewer resources than large agencies, a clear understanding of the priority of life. Can you give a good fundamental education to the audience on what that phrase means, and then you have a career worth of great examples. If you you know, so we all do. Everybody who listened to Art Bell back when he was live has a long history of being able to articulate times that we applied the priority of life correctly or we didn't. I think it it was a thing when you and I were young,
Yeah.
and then it kind of went away. Do you mind talking about what the priority of life is and how it's applied and some of the history of it as well, if you don't mind?
Yeah. So I will apologize in advance. I don't know who came up with it or where it came from. I have my
Hmm.
thoughts, but I don't know enough to try to cite somebody, and I don't want to step on people's toes with it. But
Hmm.
essentially, what it boils down to is when you're looking at an event, the people whose lives are most important, regardless of how they got there, are the victims.
Hmm.
We have an obligation. I understand what the courts have said about not to anybody specific, but we have an obligation to those victims, to those people who are at risk, right? That's followed by the non-involved bystanders. Okay, witnesses, if you will, neighbors, things like that, right? So we may have a barricade with a hostage going on at the second house down the street. We are going to break cover to go move the people out of the adjacent houses, right? And that's where Bearcats and other armored vehicles work, right? And if we can't go get those up to places, then we're going to have to find other ways to get those people out, right? We're going to hazard ourselves for the hostages, for the uninvolved bystanders. Okay. Not going to like completely discard our safety, right? But we are
Hmm.
going to put ourselves at risk for them. Then comes our safety, right? When we agreed to take the job, the badge, get paid for it, we agreed that we would put ourselves at risk for others to a degree.
Hmm.
Right? Now, it should be a thought out risk, whether that's a fraction of a second or quite some time.
Hmm.
And then after that comes the well-being of the bad guys, the folks that are driving the event, whose behavior caused us all to be there and have to do those things. It doesn't mean that the bad guy's life has no value.
Hmm.
What it
Yeah, the
means,
Constitution is a thing.
yeah, what it means is that we worry about their welfare after everybody else's. So if we've got a barricade domestic violence situation, we will go in and use deadly force against the bad guy to protect the victim hostage, right? And we
Hmm.
understand that their life's priority, okay, ours is next, but we're hazarding it for that person. And the last person on the block is the bad guy who's caused this whole thing. So that kind of makes sense?
Hmm.
Okay.
It does.
So Where we're at, unfortunately, in the light of certain events that happened over the last 10, 11 years, people wanted to start throwing priority of life out the window.
Mm-hmm.
I believe mistakenly, because I think they mistakenly misunderstood that the bad guy's life had no value, rather than understanding the importance of saving them came after saving these other people.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So there were folks trying to throw priority of life out the window, and it's been fascinating. Probably about the last 18 months, I'll say.
Mm-hmm.
Let me back up. So I retired the fall of 2019. In fact, today's actually the anniversary date of the last shift I worked.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I did another 3.5 years extra help court security. So the way it worked in our organization is you could retire, come back part-time working in the courts. You still went to all the training and everything. You would still work in the event of a natural disaster. And there were a couple big wildland fires. I worked in retirement. But otherwise that was it. You just worked in the courts. So I stopped.
That's the position I'm in now at the sheriff's office here. Is they call it semi-retired.
Yeah. For us, it was extra help. I know other places called it retired annuitant or per diem.
Right.
Thing. So you still had to keep up with all the training requirements with post. And it was fascinating as California was changing the law. One of the things I liked about my old organization was when we were dealing with these changes, they were bringing in current and former use of force instructors to vet the initial training, right? To try to get feedback. You're all trying to figure out California's laws and stuff. Anyway, back to priority of life. So there were times that you would have to hazard yourself, and where we see it kind of taught, I think correctly, is in the active killer response, whether it's a shooter, a knife, anything else. Like first on scene, you're going to have to go. You're not going to wait for a partner. You're not going to wait to fill up a contact team. Like we were taught originally in the 90s. You were going to go. You were going to go in and do it. And there's nothing wrong with that because that's society's expectation. That's what we need to do. However, we need to consider, is that the way we need to handle all of our calls?
Right.
Are there calls that we need to wait for a second partner, right? Not because we're not brave, not because we're cowardly, but because realistically, the only way to safely handle this for all involved is to have a second set of eyes.
Right.
Somebody to watch my back, somebody to watch a different angle. So when you and I were talking last night, talked about 2 events I was involved in, and I will tell you, they did not end up with anybody getting hurt other than the intention of the dude I'll talk about in the second one. But no decent, normal human beings, no officers were hurt, right? Anybody, the one guy that got hurt, that was his decision to do it. So I was a baby cop. I maybe had 18 months on because I hadn't gone to court yet. Working graveyards, had a ride along, level 3 reserve, which in California were the guys that had like a little bit of exposure to it. They were usually they were like traffic control. In this case, Doug was our gunsmith riding with me. Got a call of a teenage mom called because her teenage son had come home with a rifle. She didn't like the idea of him having a rifle. They lived out in a very rural area. She said, I'm going to put the rifle out on the front porch. Can you have a deputy come by and pick it up? I don't need anyone to go with me, right? Like, why do I need another cop? And I've kind of got a reserve with me. And no offense to Doug, has since passed, right? But still, no offense to Doug, but he was not a fully trained, equipped deputy. So I roll out in the middle in this spot, which probably 15, 20 minutes away from the closest deputy. And as I pull into the driveway and my headlights come across the front porch, the front door opens, an arm comes out, picks up the M1 Garand that's on the front porch. Watch him run the bolt and the dude disappears inside the house. I went in after him by myself.
Right.
There was no reason for it. We were at that point still at least 6 years before Columbine. So an active shooter wasn't a thing. No, I don't even think we were thinking about it. And I went chasing through the house, caught him in the bedroom, tackled him, took the gun away from him. And that was that. Knock on wood, that worked out for everyone involved, right? Had I not canceled my cover, had I waited for my cover to get there or called for cover once it happened and not gone in, waited for second deputy to get there, backed off using lights as concealment and stuff, it probably would have gone a whole lot better. Right. The good news is it worked out, but the problem is, and I got this from Gary Roverino, who was a sergeant down at SEB in the early 90s. Gary's thing was fortuitous outcomes reinforce poor tactics.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Like I got lucky, right?
Mm-hmm.
And my ride-along got lucky, and the mom got lucky, and the kid got lucky.
Mm-hmm.
So there was that one, right? And it's not like I went unscathed. My sergeant at the time had a good chunk of my fourth point of contact in a discussion over coffee afterwards. And
Mm-hmm.
the dispatcher was a very good friend of mine. She had trained me when I worked in dispatch for a while, like chewed on what was left and made it perfectly clear that that was not acceptable. And for several months, she would not let me handle and advise on anything. It was a lesson, right?
Mm-hmm.
I kept getting pounded in. So that was one. Flip the switch years later. Gone to the Middle East, come back. I'm a training officer, working swing shift. South County, and our South County beat was probably 25 miles north to south, 25 miles northwest to southeast.
Mm-hmm.
Part of the San Francisco, went all the way to the coast to the San Francisco Bay. Good size beat.
Mm-hmm.
I was working it by myself that night, and call comes in, and it's the proverbial dark and stormy night. It's raining, the wind's blowing, right? It's just one of those miserable nights. And
so it's nighttime in the winter in California, yes, at the coast.
On the coast. And rural property. There might be a theme here being a sheriff's deputy.
Right.
Call comes in, and it's Bob, 2 counties over, is calling. Says he got a letter in the mail from his friend Fred. And I don't even know if these names, just for process. Bob says, got a letter from Fred. Fred says, by the time you get this, I will be dead. Can you have the cops come out to the house and get my body? The back slider is going to be unlocked. Oh, okay. So I get dispatches in my beat. My cover is a dog handler who's coming from at least 20 miles away. He's at the far end of another beat even. And I roll up, and this is a triple wide, 50 yards back from the road. There are no cover and concealment. My patrol car is at least 100 yards past the last cover and concealment. Waiting. He's like, hey, I got to stop at this police department to go to the bathroom. Waiting. I'm still in the bathroom, waiting. I don't like standing out in the open, right? I don't like being there. Yeah, I could back up and go away, but I've kind of already spilled that I'm there. Sneak up to the house. There's a bedroom or an office in like each of the 4 corners of the house. Those windows are open. I can see into those rooms. The door from those rooms into the center part of the trailer are all closed. I can see lights on under those doors. Go all the way around. No indication of life, nothing, just the interior light. Waiting. I'm still in the bathroom. I'm like, dude, my backup's still in the bathroom. I'm on the back porch. All right, let me just open the door and see what's going on. So it's your typical aluminum and glass slider. This place has been around for years. I pull on the slider, and they've got like tapestry weight curtains, like the stuff you see on the wall of a medieval castle. And as I get the slider open enough to be able to see what's going on in the house, a gust of wind comes up. I've got a gun in one hand and slider in the other. And a gust of wind comes up, grabs the tapestry, spins it around me, and that's the point I see the dude hanging from the center beam, the triple wide. I'm not ashamed to admit, fortunately, I'm old enough that I'll do it. I screamed like a little girl.
Little pea comes out.
Yeah, I could not get out of that tapestry fast enough, and there was no good way to do it, right? So I'm like fighting my way out of it. The gentleman is clearly deceased. I'll leave it at that. Go trucking back out to the road in the patrol car. Sorry about that. The phone went. I thought I had it quiet. Go trucking back out to the patrol car. Call for the sergeant. Call for the medical examiner. Call for everybody. Tell my partner, like, you need to get down here, right? That one was a little different in that there was a chance that dude could have still been alive. Right? Not a great chance, but how long do you wait, right?
Right.
And I saw all I need to see to know I didn't need to be in there until the cavalry got there. And kind of the backstory on it is he'd been diagnosed with something ethyl-methyl terminal. He was on tons of meds. He decided on his own terms he was going to go out. He wasn't going to wait for it to kill him. So he sent a letter to his friend. Went home. Looked like he had a pretty decent dinner that night. Laid out all his prescription meds with a note. took the contents pretty much of a whole bottle of opioids and backed it up with a cocktail or two while he'd put a noose around his neck.
Yeah.
And he went out on his own terms.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't make anybody else do it.
Right.
So, that was one, just kind of get everybody down there for it. So those were times where on the first one, for absolutely sure, I should have waited. I should have waited for a partner. There was no need to rush to push that situation. On the second one, I think I had a reason to at least open the door and see what was going on with that guy, right?
Right.
When I cleared the house by myself, there was no need to, especially not once I saw what I saw. Those may be two extreme examples, but that's
I think they're great. I think they're great illustrative examples, not only of the different circumstances of each, but also your level of experience when you encountered each. I think that the underappreciated importance or the importance of preparation and experience is greatly underappreciated when contrasted against the priority of life. The better trained, the more prepared a person is, the more clearly they will see those priority of life examples in relief of real context. The challenge with checking the box training of the priority of life is that it is implying a level of training and experience to be able to correctly judge those subtleties that you express there. I think those are great examples of application of the priority of life.
And it didn't end up being, none of those ended up being hostage rescues. None of those ended up being active killer events, right? What kind of drove this, and I wrote an article on it a couple weeks ago, was I've since fled the People's Republic of California. And look, it has a red star on the flag, and if you compare that to the rest of the planet, that's all you need to know why it's a People's Republic. Now I happen to live in Utah, and regrettably, Utah had 2 officers murdered recently, a short couple weeks before we're doing this podcast. And I'm not saying they did anything wrong, right? I don't know enough about the event to know, but what was reported in the media was that it was a domestic violence call at a house with the male suspect had a history of assault arrests, all of which had been dismissed by the court system. And we can talk about those failures another time. Primary officer gets on, small agency, actually covers two towns. Primary officer gets on scene. He's making contact with the victim, gets murdered by the suspect. No response to radio calls to the primary officer. Second officer gets on scene, acknowledges he's on scene. He's murdered by the suspect. No response to radio traffic. And again, this is out of the media. County Sheriff's Office is contacted. They roll a dog handler, mutual aid. As he arrives on scene, he's like 2 officers down, and then he's immediately shot. And so is his kid. Right. Now, again, don't have all the details, but it's more the discussion points of, unless the neighbor's saying he's got a gun to her head trying to kill her right now, and she's fled, maybe we wait for the partner. We have the second set of eyes, right? I'm not saying that would have solved this one, right? But we do need to kind of learn lessons, right? Like what could be taken from that. And I don't want to disparage the officers. I don't know them. I know one of them was an instructor in a national organization. So I want to be respectful of that without having all the knowledge, right? Or even seen body worn camera footage, but just something to consider for folks.
Well, and it's a particularly acute in small agencies who are already underfunded, already understaffed. And it's a natural inclination. The more you do something, the more comfortable you get doing it. And waiting, that some of these rural jurisdictions. So since the foundation kind of went live, I'm talking to dozens of small agency guys a day who are just contacting us for help, which that's what we're here for. But talking to those guys about the average, one of the Patrol Institute's tasks eventually is going to be determining kind of what's a normal wait time for a second unit. What's things like that. And how important it is to understand the priority of life
Yeah.
to be able to make good decisions when it's boring. That's when it's hard to make really good decisions, is when you've, excuse me, when you've been to 10 domestics at this same address and you're like, I'm not waiting 10 minutes for another guy. I'll just go deal with it. I know that Billy Bob and Metheny are just fighting over who's using the last of the dope.
Yeah.
Like, and that's when circumstances like this can occur. So a, a, a deep understanding of priority of life and or combined with experience uh, becomes so critically important.
And I will say, not as a caveat, but as to help with the understanding, yes, I worked at a large
Hmm.
sheriff's office, good sized
Hmm.
sheriff's office. But one of the last critical incidents I supervised was an active killer event on the 4th of July, and it
Hmm.
involved a 36-minute code 3 run to the scene.
Right.
So the idea of being spread out was like, I get it.
Hmm.
In our
Right.
substation guys, we usually had 2 on at a time. And when the
Hmm.
substation sergeants went home, those guys were mine. So,
Hmm. Yep. Yeah, it's not unique to the TF70 agencies, the 70% of agencies that are small, because the tyranny of geography and staffing is a real thing even in large agencies. The
yeah,
the individual skills and and building of competency is just as important in the large agencies. The reason the foundation is focused where it is because the small agencies, who are the most cops, get the least
yeah,
of that effort. I've talked about this before, but in my evaluation, the the quality and level of training in large agencies is actually increasing. It's getting better, which it's the first time since I started my career that I've seen that trend. And I think it's a combination of a wider variety of information being available. There's a lot more private training available that guys who are interested are able to come train without having to wait for 3 years for a gun sight spot to open up, things like that.
yeah.
Um, I think in large agencies things are getting better. They're getting worse in small agencies because of the tyranny of demographics and resourcing and things like that, which is why the foundation is here. But I think your point is very valid that large agency officers can't ignore these requirements either,
Mhm.
because there are going to be circumstances where, I mean, I've worked in large agencies as well where I've waited 25 minutes for somebody to show up and there's 14 guys on duty, and like, because we're covered down on 3 domestics and a DUI, and you know I get the gun call. I'm the only one 10-8. So if we continue to think that because we have a bunch of people on shift with us that we're safe, we need to rethink that proposition, if that makes sense.
It does.
So what do you think about some things that guys can be doing to even at large agencies, but especially small agencies? What kind of mindset can we inculcate in ourselves to be prepared to deal with those sorts of issues?
Continue to rehearse stuff
Yeah.
mentally. Continue to practice. It's
Yeah.
quiet. One thing, go do some sort of training, right? In the military, it's
Hmm.
called hip pocket training, but it doesn't
Right.
have to be formal, right? Uh,
Right.
you know where the new subdivision in town is, right? Like where I
Hmm.
live, they're building like crazy.
Right.
Guns don't come out of the holsters. You can use your handheld flashlight. Go clear those framed out buildings.
Hmm.
Look at that neighborhood where the fences aren't up yet. The siding's not up yet. Where do I set a perimeter?
Hmm.
Going to a call at that third house. Where do I go? Where do I put my cover units? How
Hmm.
do I start dealing with these things, right? Dispatch is going, hey, the sheriff's office is coming in with 3 units. Where do you need them?
Hmm.
That's not the time to figure out where you're going to put them, right? Like
Right.
rehearse that, think through that ahead of time. There were events I was involved in. I'll talk about this segment of one specifically. I had
Mm-hmm.
done an oral board in the morning. There was a tactical scenario. Lieutenant was a good friend of mine. We had worked together forever. He gave me my first nickname in the business,
Mm-hmm.
Shithouse. Anyway, we were going through this whole cycle, and then that afternoon an event happens, and he's responding. He's the watch commander. He's responding to it, and as he gets out of the meeting that he was pulled out of, he comes up on the air and he hears me running through the entire process just the way I had talked about it in an interview that morning.
Mm-hmm.
When we had a chance later on to talk about a number of things, he goes, it was so cool having seen the whole progression of you as a cop. And I'm not doing this for the bragging part. I'm doing this for I got to the point where I knew how to run a scene at least as well as any of the people I worked for.
Mm-hmm.
I could explain it in an office setting and turn around and do it on the street.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things when I was an FTO was trying to get folks to understand we're not training you to go out and answer calls. We're training you to go out and run scenes.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. The first guy
And,
there is responsible.
Yeah,
Got to be a leader.
I, again, think of one where 45 minutes, I had multiple victim and attempt murder scene for 45 minutes until the lieutenant showed up. He's like, hey, you're doing a great job. And he took off. I'm like, whoa,
Mm-hmm.
wait, I'm not even 3 years on the job. Yeah, you're doing fine. Sergeant shows up like a half hour later, like goes and does some other things. But trying to get it to where you can do that, where you can run a scene, and the most a supervisor has to do is like, hey, you did great A through K, but you missed L. Oh, got it, right? Like if that's all they can tell you, you're handling stuff well and get to where you can do those things.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And in small agencies, it's a challenge for some of the guys that I've been talking to recently, because the demographics are such with small agencies that the turnover is so fast that we end up with leadership, field leadership, that doesn't have the experience level to teach the new kids well enough to not only make them safer and make the community safer, but to keep them. Like if you put a guy in a car in a town with 7,000 residents on night shift, and he sits in the gas station parking lot all night for 3 years, he's leaving. Like we're not keeping that guy. So how do we as leaders continually engage these guys and develop and build them, even if nothing ever happens here, because something will always happen here.
So it's incumbent on the supervisors, both the training officers and the sergeants, to not let the learning end. You may be in a place where there's just two of you and you're running 12-hour shifts, and the day shift guys are wanting to go home or whatever. Fine. Maybe you're not doing it in briefing. Maybe you're doing it at 2 a.m, but talk to an event, right? The good news with the information superhighway, you know what Pat called it, is we've got a ton of examples, right? And I don't care what LE cop centric media source you look at. You can be your own local paper. We've got enough examples of events to sit down and go, okay, how would I run this? You know, if this happens to us in 10 minutes, how are we going to do this? How are we going to deal with the incoming help?
Yep.
And if you're a sergeant, do that in briefing. Do that over coffee. Do debrief stuff. It doesn't have to be a formal after action review like at the end of a rotation at Fort Polk and JRTC. It can be you guys leaning up against the hood and the quarter panel of the car. Okay, this is what I knew going into the call. When I got there, this is what I saw. This is what we didn't get told about. These are the decisions I made. That one turns out not to have been so good. Hey, you've been doing this job a year longer than I have. What do you think I could have done better? Now, it's incumbent on all the parties involved to also admit to the stuff they did wrong, right? Like, you know, hey, I screwed that one up. I didn't process this. I didn't know that, right? Be honest about it, because the younger ones will learn from you. If you're willing to dive on the sword for your errors and talk about what you learned from it, they will be more willing to do that. And then everybody involved gets better. It's the debriefing process. It's like shoot house runs.
Absolutely. And it's how culture is actually managed and built. If you, through inattention, or which I see mostly in small agencies that are having problems. Not every small agency has problems, but the ones that do, I see one of the primary root causes is the mistake or the interposition of ego mistaken for skill.
Mhm.
And if that is the dynamic that's present, a useful debrief after action or scenario talk is meaningless
Yeah.
because it's not going to bear any fruit,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. And that's going to lead to, once guys promote, let's say they get promoted to patrol sergeant, in your opinion, does that relieve them of the necessity of continuing to build skill and prepare for unusual circumstance calls?
No, it actually makes it more important because you've doubled the workload. You're still a cop.
Yeah.
You still should be. You're a street cop. You're a road deputy.
Right.
When your guys are busy, you're going to go have to jump that call. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
when one of your guys' kids is having a birthday party and they're like, "Hey, Sarge, I gotta run home. I got to spend 30 minutes there." Cool. You're now
Mm-hmm.
the beat partner for their coworker.
Right.
Right. So you've got to be able to do all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You've also got to be able to disengage from it when
Mm-hmm.
needed and run the scene.
Mm-hmm.
One sergeant I worked for, Glenn, we had a home invasion dope rip down in the barrio.
I'm so surprised.
I know, shocked, right?
Right.
In fact, that exact neighborhood, we did a 36 location hit with two
Mm-hmm.
FBI SWAT teams and a couple other local teams on another case. Anyway, so I'm primary, got a young deputy as my young road deputy as my partner. She's been a bunch of time in corrections.
Mm-hmm.
We get on scene and we start running it. And that alphabet example I gave a little bit ago came from this call. Glenn shows up, realizes I'm getting stuff, and just steps back and lets me run the scene. And I'm divvying up stuff and everything else. And at one point, he comes up, just leans over my shoulder, whispers into my ear, "Hey, you forgot L." Oh,
Mm-hmm.
you're right, I did. So while I'm dealing with that, right, and everything else, he stepped back. He's watching what it is, making sure I got the resources. He's on the phone with dispatch and records. They take the suspect info we generated. Glenn puts it all together. Now we know who the suspects are, right? We had enough to identify the suspects. Glenn's got them to figure out got dispatch records to figure out where these folks are at, and has got a layout of the house, of the property. So now by the time I'm done with everything at the scene, photographs, evidence, people going to hospital, everything else, Glenn's like, "Here you go, run with it."
Mm-hmm.
And we just pick everybody up and move them to the target location, set a perimeter, initiate a call out, call the bad guys out, get a consent search, go recover all the evidence. Mm-hmm. The sergeant doing the sergeant stuff let me run the scene.
Mm-hmm. Instead of him trying to poke every detail.
Yeah, instead of him trying to do everything.
Super important. Yeah.
So for him, he knew he had a senior deputy, little s,
mm-hmm.
who could manage the call. So he got to be able to manage the resources, right? So
mm-hmm.
Those are the things that you have to be able to do. And that means wearing your vest to work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
We've all worked for supervisors and managers who don't know what body armor is anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yep. The smallest gun they can possibly get the department to buy them is what they will carry.
Yep.
Instead of being ready to work all the time.
And a note for lieutenants, captains, chiefs, sheriffs, I'm not bagging on you. I understand you have a different role
mm-hmm.
than your folks on the road. However, you go to community meetings with people who don't like us.
Mm-hmm.
You go to community meetings with the people who the rest of us call moonbats.
Right.
And they're cray-cray, and they want to mm-hmm. argue with you and everything else. And every now and then, one of them has a break with reality, and now you have to be a street cop again.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're there in an open top holster with a Glock 26, right? I'm dating
mm-hmm.
myself. Okay, G48, open top holster, and no armor, and no handcuffs, and no impact weapon,
mm-hmm.
nor OC. How do you deal with that dude without it making the local news?
Right. Right. Exactly. And how do you? There's one of the there's so much to this rabbit hole I'm about to open, but I'll try to minimize it. One of the challenges that I see is the the bureaucratization of the law enforcement world trickles down to the smallest of agencies
Yeah.
through a bunch of different ways, right? Where executive level training is strongly encouraged and it's good and it's necessary, but it tends to if you're already starting from behind the eight ball as an executive leader, it's very easy to fall into a check the box. I'm a bureaucrat of a larger institution, right? Which aren't a thing in a constitutional republic. Institution, but that leads to a loss of whatever street mind, for lack of a better term, that they had in the first place. So like not never losing that. We have a department here local to us. We have three very small police departments within our medium-sized sheriff's office jurisdiction. One of them, the chief still shags calls, still does stuff, and and he's our generation, which I suspect is part of why he does that. But it shouldn't, for a chief of police, he should be a working cop. And the smaller the agency, the more true that is. I understand that there's bureaucracy and administration that has to occur, and that stuff is important. But the further away from the street you get, the less you view what we do as a trade, and the more you view it as an institution. And that's how we get replaced by AI robots, is being like bureaucrats are replaceable.
Oh,
So
yes.
so instead of we are a trade, and there's a long diatribe on one of the Patrol Institute studies that is planned fairly soon is the integration of AI into local small agency law enforcement. And there are ways that that can be done very well, and there are ways that that can be done to encourage the de-emphasizing of the individual officer's judgment, which is a terrifying um, dystopian view of we're going to have little four-legged robots walking around, or the new Florida, the company in Florida that's making the armed drones that they're selling to schools. Things like that come from, well, it's easier to pay for that than it is to train a cop properly and keep him motivated and trained. And that is not two old men sitting around bitching about it. That's a serious
Yeah.
constitutional problem. And the only way that's going to be fixed is if we fix it. If we refuse to give them the opening, the opportunity to replace us with that, because it can make decisions. We don't make decisions. We have discretionary judgment, and that has to be taught. That takes time.
It has to be
And
developed.
yes, and I suspect that we are playing into the opponent's game by managing by check the boxes and carrying a Glock 48. Like that alone is, come on, guys. Come on.
Okay, so since we're back to equipment, we can
Yes.
go down the rabbit
Yes, let's
hole.
do that.
Let's segue
Right. I like your transition there.
into equipment.
Yeah.
So I know you wanted to talk about personally owned versus department issue.
Yes, and why that becomes a thing, and yes, please.
So I am a gear do.
Mm-hmm.
I am a gear queer, gear nerd, whatever you want to call it. Right. I kind of always have been. It goes back as far as going to my first duty station on active duty and realizing that the boots that were fine for basic training in the summertime were atrocious in the winter of West Germany. Yes, it was that long ago.
Right.
And buying German infantry boots that worked in cold weather, right? Like that was the starting point of it.
Right.
So yes, we need some level of uniformity. I'm not saying that, go out and buy a different shirt or a different pair of trousers. I do think our uniforms need to be functional, and I'll argue that one all day long, right?
Mm-hmm.
That we need more functional than pretty. There's a time for pretty, but most of the stuff should be functional. So
Mm-hmm.
let's talk guns, optics, armor, lights.
Mm-hmm.
There are some big agencies in this country, or very well funded national agencies in this country, that can legitimately do testing.
Mm-hmm.
The rest of us kind of do evaluation, no matter what we want to call it.
Right.
And that will be my presentation at SHOT Show's LEAP program this year, is equipment and evaluation for the local agency. Anyway, the agency has a responsibility to issue you a reliable, accurate, and effective handgun. And I didn't come up with that. It was actually a non-gun guy, administrator at my agency, who hit that exact thing while we were dealing with stuff. And he's spot on. I stole it. However, that gun may not fit everyone's hands, just like your dearly beloved Danner Acadia's an 11.5 double E may not fit everyone else in the department, right? So we have to make allowances for it, okay? As long as we have a variety of guns that are reliable, accurate, and effective, we let people choose from that. There was the lawsuit FBI, Christine Hanses versus FBI, that never went to trial. It was settled, but it kind of did establish some level of precedence about you've got to supply equipment to people that fits them, right? So you can't make everybody wear the same size shirt. So have an issue gun, have some allowable guns. I came up in a department that had a very liberal, in the correct use of the word, personally owned weapons policy. When I started, the issue gun was a Model 66. There were a whole bunch of 1911s, some Browning high powers, a couple of H&K P7s, Glock 17s, and then eventually we had Glock 20s and 21s in people's holsters. And Berettas, and we expanded from there, right? What we had was a very 1911 centric department, which led to a lot of the other instructors being gun. So there was a level of institutional knowledge on that's okay and that's not, right? The way we always put it in policy was it had to be approved by the departmental armorer or gunsmith and the program manager. Now, were there a couple of guns that slipped through that I didn't want to see? Yeah, I can think of somebody who carried a less than good name 1911, and he had the chronic 1911 amnesia of my gun never malfunctions. It's like, dude, did you see your last string of fire?
Right.
But we worked with that, right? When we got patrol rifles, which for us was in 1993, we had bolt action, lever action, M1 carbines, M1As, an HK91, a lot of ARs. The only thing that we said absolutely no to were people carrying SKSs or AKs. Not because they aren't effective, right? They're reliable, they're accurate, they're effective, but the sheriff didn't want to deal with the visual of those guns. And I can't argue with him, right? At some point, we got to have it set up. We ended up with a personally owned shotgun program along the way for several years. And that one, I wrote that, and I will confess I was very restrictive on it. It was strictly right-hand 870s. And the reason behind it had nothing to do with other guns. It had to do with the ability of somebody to put it into action. Because at that time, we didn't have rifle wraps up front. So the rifles were cased. Pistols were on your hip. The only way somebody was going to be able to get one of your guns into play was hitting the button to release the electrolock and grab the shotgun. And when we brought a bunch of different operating systems out to a range day and tried to get the instructors to all put them into action, this weird thing about shotguns is the controls are all different from the model, right? So we had instructors that couldn't put all the guns into play, and we're like, we're going to have to limit it just because of the understanding level of everybody else there, right? Putting the box in, pulling the thing, pressing the thing is different from how the shotgun works. So we did have some requirements. Like I said, the armorer or gunsmith and the program manager had to approve those. Then you start getting into other stuff, right? So like, what about body armor? And I know we were interacting when the whole Xylon mess hit, right? And at that point, while it was NIJ approved, so there was that to fall back on for folks, right? Not everyone was aware of the degradation with the heat and the humidity to it, right? So we had people going out buying these other vests because they were lighter, super comfortable. They weren't necessarily what the organization issued. And then we had failures, and we had one cop dead and a couple cops wounded because of vest failures.
Mm-hmm.
NIJ has since updated the standards, right? Like, and they have standards for firearms too, which we can talk about. But there, I would say, and your policy reads, your life support equipment has to be either departmentally issued or approved by the agency.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have a memo that covers it. So you're not going back and having to change policy all the time. But you've got to have people who pay attention to the test and evaluation stuff out there, who can give some informed opinion,
right,
whether it's worthwhile. David Blake's a retired Livermore, Pleasanton, California cop. Last I heard, he was still a PhD candidate, but one of his articles in his process of getting his master's and his PhD was on tactical flashlights and how they impact us, right? So you and I came up in the Surefire 6P era, and this is not a knock on Surefire. This is just kind of an example of a starting point. So I went from big stream lights to the Surefires to this other stuff that has come along. Lumens was a big deal for decades. Right now, for the last probably 5-6 years, we've been talking candela a lot more. It's pretty easy for me to walk into Home Depot and buy a light that's got a high lumen output that will fill a room. Cool. It won't push down a hallway.
Right.
So if I'm going to allow flashlights other than what we issue, and everybody should have at least 2 on them, not counting the pistol light, light, right? We may have to put some parameters on that and then allow people to choose within it, right? So it's like, got to have this level of output in the candela range, maybe this level in the lumen range. It's got to have this kind of runtime. What about carrying spare batteries?
Right.
That could be taught in training. That doesn't need to be policy, but we need to consider those things as we go, right? So maybe, for example, here at the Walk and Don't Walk Police Department, you will be issued this light, right? We encourage you, if you're going to purchase something else, it has to be in this parameter. We know that you can make high candela work this way through searching. Can't always make high lumens work this way, right? We set the parameters of what's acceptable, right? And then maybe we do like the Army did at one point with the protective eyewear, right? Here's a list of what's acceptable.
Right.
What if you don't have that resident gear do? You don't have the resident flashlight guy? Cool. 2 towns over, they have that guy. They have the guy who's on Candle Power forums, right? If that's still a thing, that was around for a while. You reach out to him. Hey, what's cool? What's the reasonable stuff, right? You look at what you're seeing. There's one company out there who I have a collection of their weapon-mounted lights photos of their weapon-mounted lights falling off guns on the range. Every time I see it, I take a picture of it, right? That may not be the light that I include. I understand cost-wise whether there's some benefit to it, but they've got a mounting system that has now about 30 years of history. That.
Exactly.
That might be one that I would argue against. Okay. I understand cost, right? And we make the joke that what's cheaper than 1 cop, 2 cops, right? And yeah, I get the economy and I get small town paychecks and everything else, but this is stuff that will get you home to the people you care about. Right. Maybe instead of the new mud tires, maybe that goes to weapon mounted lights or handheld lights.
Right.
So what I would say for the smaller agencies is, here's what we issue. Here's a policy on what we allow. Here's a memo that says what we specifically are okay. Look at the NIJ BJS test stuff. You guys all know about the NIJ certs for body armor. They also have certifications for handguns, carbines, and shotguns. I will tell you the shotgun one is disgustingly old. It's at least 3 decades old right now.
I reviewed it recently because I'm assisting a couple of agencies who are going back to shotguns as an alternate arm, which is a phenomenally good idea in my mind. Like, you should be carrying a rifle and a shotgun, a lethal shotgun.
Yes.
But
8mm for less lethal, not 12 gauge.
Right. Exactly. That study is so old that I couldn't use it.
Yeah.
It's so old.
it needs to be redone, but at least it's a starting point. It gives you a parameter, right?
I can footnote it,
Yeah.
but using it as a source document is not
Now,
not a
have you
great
looked at
idea.
the handgun one recently?
No, I have not.
Okay, so the last update to it that I saw was January of last year, involved
Mhm.
H&K coming onto it. That's I ended up writing an article based on H&K's press because H&K did a press release on it. So I wrote about the whole standard.
Right.
Go back and take a look at it because there's one company that's not present on it that's really fascinating.
Really?
Yep.
I will go look.
None of their products are in that list.
Really?
Yeah.
That's telling because I can guess without us having to call them out. Yeah.
So just right, like the stuff's out there, be aware of it, right? So like the body stuff has evolved. If guys aren't aware, we went away. So way back when there was level 2A, 2, 3A soft armor. Then we had level 3, which was kind of sort of ish a thing. Level 4 would stop a lot of stuff. The new body armor standard, which is supposed to be completely in effect by, I think, December this year or the end of December this year, is now handgun 1, handgun 2, and rifle 1, 2, and 3. So
I hadn't read it since it was in draft form, but I'm kind of looking forward to it coming out.
I read it. So it's out. The final version's out. It came out early last year. I had a lot of comments on it when it was draft form, sent them off. I was still working when it was out. And was like, where is this? Where is this? Where is this? And like anything else with the federal bureaucracy, it took forever.
Right.
So that's how I would do it, right? And I know a lot of us think Lexapol might be the devil. Okay, maybe not the devil, but somebody you're not inviting to dinner on Sunday. One thing I will say, being from an agency that adopted Lexapol first in parts and full tilt, there are some things I do that they like. Things they do I like. One of them was they want all your internal subject matter experts or people, supervisors, managers for the areas to go through and review the policies when you adopt it. So like one of the things they require if you adopt their policies is you have to have somebody who's designated as the subject matter expert on body armor by policy. And he makes the recommendations for it.
Right.
So have that, if you do adopt Lexapol, have that person in there, have them taking a look at stuff.
Right.
I would buy from a big name company, not that that's a guarantee of anything, but it's a whole lot better than somebody whose business is in a warehouse complex in a tourist town.
Right. And just because a brand ambassador came to your agency to sell you shit doesn't mean it's good.
Right.
Like, it doesn't mean it's bad either.
But take a look at it. Take a look at the test data. So the other thing I'll give Lexapol credit for is they have some language that is available that covers personally owned equipment.
Right.
That allows it, that approves it. So if somebody says, well, we can't do that by policy, yes, you can. Lexapol has the language. That's somebody in the food chain who's being lazy, who doesn't want to do the work on it.
That was going to be my next point is don't use Lexapol as an excuse to either be lazy or to federalize the police by laziness.
Yeah.
Like Lexapol is a standard. It's not a regulation, right?
Yeah. They're a provider of a standard. It's like CALIA. Right. Now, I never had to sit through a CALIA accreditation process. Thank God.
I did. Don't do it. I almost slit my wrist.
I've heard the stories.
Yeah.
Well, if you kind of boil it down, what they're saying is here's the standard, you have to meet it. Right. If you're going to say you're doing this, then you have to have a policy that covers it, and you have to have training on it. Right. Which that part of it's not bad. If it's check the box stuff, it's bad. But at least we're saying if we're going to do this, if we're going to say we do this, and we need to actually do that.
Yeah. How do you document that you're actually doing it?
Yeah. So I would say that's okay. Which kind of leads down to the other thing that we wanted to hit on, which was red dot sites. Right. I am a huge fan of red dot sights with the caveat that you have to work with the gun. The kids coming into the business, I would start them out on a red dot equipped pistol from day one. They would get sworn into that, and we would show them how to work irons once they had mastered sight alignment, right? Putting the dot on what you're trying to hit. because you're looking at what you're trying to hit and you're letting the dot appear. And then later on, I would go back and show them how to use the backup iron sights or the alternate shooting method, right? For those folks, and it's less common now, but for those that have been around for a while that came up on irons, I would absolutely make them go through the transition training.
Even if they're going to still carry irons, they need to go through.
I would still make them go through it because it's trigger time. It's time on the gun. It's presentations. It's manipulations. It's reloads. It's stoppage clearance. You're getting time on the gun because usually everybody's buying new guns when you go to do this, right? So even if they're going to pull the optic off and slap the plate back on, they just got hopefully multiple sessions, at least 2, with that new gun. Right, to learn it and everything else. And then in 6 months from now, when they've had their butt kicked by everybody on the department every time they go to the range and they're looking around and everybody's like, dude, why aren't you doing this? I don't have to reschedule that whole transition process. I just got to put the optic on, let it sit for the amount of time necessary for the thread locker to cure, take them out, zero it, a little bit of remedial training, get them started on the training road. Let them run a qual course, which is not qualify them. Just run the qual course, and then put them out on the red. Right. That's how I would run that. For new hires, it's put that in their hand right from the get go. What are some? Go ahead.
Can we sidetrack for just a second?
It's your show, of course.
So I appreciate that very much, sir. We have a problem in our state. We sent a guy through so there's a centralized state academy that's available. There's a couple of private ones, but the centralized academy is the one used. They would not allow a deputy. So at our agency, he was issued a red dot sight from his first day. He wasn't allowed to use it in the basic academy in 2023, I think. And I'm pretty sure it's still the same.
That is a come to Jesus moment with their use of force training instructors, where they have to be shown why they're wrong. And then in the immortal words of one of my favorite prosecutors, they need percussive therapy applied to them. Because of what we're asking people to do in these critical incidents, in these life or death moments, how the body's wired to run. A red dot sighting system works light years better than what we have been doing. Now,
it's a neuropsychological, biological interface with the system.
That was a whole lot fancier than I was going to say, which is what the brain wants to do under stress.
It's what you want to do under stress anyway. So
I came up in an era that was in a pathway that was very heavily front sight focused. I had a chance. Some of my academy instructors were disciples-ish of Jeff Cooper. I think one had been to gun sight. Very early on, I was fortunate by mistake to be sent to LAPD for a shooting and tactics package. We thought it was how to identify Paco and Flacco. No, it was a mini SWAT school for gang cops. So I got exposed.
That course and I didn't mean to interrupt you, but that course and LA's officer safety and field tactics. I don't know if either of those are still going, but they should be. If they're not, they should be resurrected. Those were phenomenal courses.
What was it? Tactical operations for gang officers, I think was the class. It was a 3-day. Right. And like I that's a whole sidebar of that class, what I got out of that class and how it impacted me the rest of my career. And then I went to gun sight the first time in 94. So I have come up, dyed in the wool. Yes, I shot a Weaver stance with a 1911. Okay.
See that gun?
My Weaver stance looks nothing like what a lot of people think the Weaver is, right? Because it was more about isometric tension, push, pull, than some weird blading. And that's a whole other conversation about training. I had front sight focus pounded into me, and I can tell you from experience it works. And I can I'll just leave it at I can tell you from experience it works, right? The problem is not everybody else is going to be as invested in hardwiring, myelinating the process of that's the big, bad, scary thing that's going to kill me. I need to stop looking at that and focus on this bump to save my life, right?
Right.
The red dots allow us to, that's the big, bad, scary thing that's going to kill me. I'm going to keep looking at it and let the red dot appear in my line of sight and stop it from hurting me.
Right.
The brain wants to do that. So that works.
Well, and we've proven that it works.
Yeah, we know it works. The data's out there. We've seen it. You got into the science side. I don't try to dumb stuff down, but I try to make stuff that doesn't make people's eyes roll back in their head, because I know I was there at one point.
I've probably done that to you.
I think that was the low light class. But one of the things that we have seen is that we need to do better jobs on inputs, right? We know the more emotionally attached we are to a life-threatening event, the harder it is for us to process things that are going on during it, right? So like if somebody's trying to kill me and I'm shooting to defend myself, I may be so emotionally invested in stopping that dude or dudette from killing me that I don't pick up on what's going on in my environment, right? And if I'm forcing myself to tunnel vision in on a front sight, then I'm really cutting down the amount of visual input, and we start from full field of view down to paraphobia, down to foveal stuff, right? And under extreme stress, we can be talking like inches at 5 10 right? So one of the advantages to the red dots is we're not inducing the tunnel vision, right? If it's taught correctly, you're looking at what the problem is and letting it appear. So along the way, there have been some other voices in the community that have come up that I think have some really beneficial thoughts. One of the dudes is Dustin Solomon, Naval Academy guy, shot on their pistol team there, went out to the fleet as a surface warfare officer. He wasn't anybody cool, right? Didn't do anything, didn't do Oakley's and hair gel. Nothing against the Navy SEALs, just Dustin was a surface warfare guy. Got tasked with training people on the boat to shoot guns for boat defense. Turned that into a book called Building Shooters, Hitting in Combats, follow on.
Which are phenomenal, should be required reading for firearms instructors and law enforcement agencies.
But along the way, Dustin was looking like, okay, how do we start training people to get off the gas when the threat's over with? How do we train people to recognize that environments change? So he came up with a thing called a neuro, that when you distill it down is a smart laser projector tied with a computer running behind it, tied to a smart shot timer. So you run these things and you can do it with one, but it works better in a bank of 3 with multiple targets. And you illuminate the target with a shoot or no shoot visual indicator or a challenge indicator. Those things go on and off randomly for different periods of time. Once you get the shoot indicator, it times your response to that stimulus and your shots. It times your split times. Spoiler alert, when you're doing stuff for judgment, you're not going to have some 1 second draws and sub 0.25 splits, right? Once you start realizing how this works, you will really come off the gas. You still need the skill, but you're not going to be doing it at those speeds. But once the stimulus goes away, the timer's still running and it tells you how long you have. And if you take a look at what's come out of Force Science and some other places, it's reasonably easy for those folks to explain shots that come a half second after, up to a half second after the stimulus, after the life threat has gone away. It's when you start getting a minute and a half, I'm sorry, a second, second and a half, 2 seconds.
A minute would be a
live
execution.
People are still shooting. That's harder to explain to folks because they don't really understand it. Well, how do you train that, right? You can do turning targets and go away, but if the turner's powered by air, you hear the right? So you don't necessarily.
We subconsciously game it pretty quick.
But here you have a system where all of a sudden the visual stimulus is gone, or it's changed to no shoot, and it's running a timer on your reaction to it. And if you shoot at 0.3, okay, we can explain that one. If you're still shooting at 0.9 or 1.2, that's a lot harder to explain, and we've got to figure out what's going on and get you to do it. There were 10 of us.
I think I didn't mean to interrupt your line of thought, but I think that is yet another way that we maximize resourcing with red dots. Is we're not inculcating them to amplify a neurological issue that we already know about that comes from focusing on the front sight, which increases that time of engagement after the threat has ceased,
Mhm.
if that makes sense.
Where I was going was just onto that.
Mm-hmm.
We had 10 of us in the class.
Mm-hmm.
Um, four cops. The other six were decent, normal human beings.
Mm-hmm.
Um, only one of the guys in the class had iron sights. Everybody else was shooting dots. The one gentleman shooting irons, very experienced shooter. I've known him and taught with him probably 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
And he was very honest that it was very difficult for him to catch and process and respond to the changes in the environment with the irons, because he wasn't looking at the target like a red dot will allow you, the threat like a red dot will allow you to do. Red dot. He was having to bounce from the front sight to the target, back to the front sight, things that we tell folks don't do. Like he was having to do that to catch the changes in the environment. Wasn't he shot poorly? It was just he had these things to deal with. So, there is a sample of one, right? But I'm willing to apply that one to the broader perspective based on other things.
Yeah. Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think that it will be highly unusual in a couple of years for there not to be a red dot on every police pistol.
Yeah.
I think it should have transitioned a while ago. I think it's just a combination of bureaucratic inertia and personal opinion taking the place of good judgment, things like that. So
I think there are, right, here's a guy who went to his first non-military firearms instructor school in 1993. I think there are a lot of legacy firearms instructors who don't know how to do it, who don't understand how to employ it. Maybe not a lot, but there are enough in certain places. They don't know how to teach it also. So the easier answer is we're not going to do this because this is a whole different kind of training.
Well, and the smaller the agency, the more likely that is.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah. But with turnover, you might have a younger guy, but he also doesn't necessarily know how to explain it, how to articulate the benefit of it. I've got a video that came out of LA Sheriff's Department. I was given a heads up on it by a friend who regrettably has passed away. But it was guys out of his station that were in the shooting. And we see a lot of high round count shootings that are hard to explain because the threat is not before people process that. This is one where there was one less lethal round fired out of a 40 millimeter. And I think there were 3 at most 4 rounds fired from the handgun in low light, right? Because the deputy shooting the handgun was able to see the changes in behavior of the suspect, that even while he was shooting at a, let's say, accelerated pace, but definitely he was not shooting slow, but he can process the changes in the environment and get off the trigger in response to those sooner because he had a dot on the gun versus the irons.
Right.
And that's one of several.
Yeah. I think that at the higher level or the further horizon, we want to encourage the guys who are responsible for use of force training to begin to relearn what we used to know of the gun is just the tool, right? We want to maximize the effectiveness and the appropriate use of the tool of the handgun, for instance. The goal in and of itself is not to be a good pistol shooter. It's to be able to have the ability to exercise good judgment constitutionally very rapidly and then come off of it very rapidly is the real goal. So that's why I'm so excited that you're so deep into the red dot sight world, because you're much better at articulating that at a national level than a lot of folks are. There's a lot of good red dot pistol teaching out there, but it does need to be taken by cops, especially instructors, from a constitutionally focused law enforcement perspective, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So at the risk of being accused of shameless self-promotion,
which you should.
I have a 2.5-day pistol mounted optics class. It started out as being strictly LE, but I haven't had enough decent normal human beings ask for it that once I could kind of figure out what the minimum instructor non-governmental instructor requirements were, that I could do that.
Right.
It focuses on not just going out and shooting it, but how do you build a program? How do you build a more defensible program?
Right.
How do you teach it? Nothing against my peers out there, but if you don't understand how Popow versus Margate relates to law enforcement training, how Zutschel versus Denver impacts recurrent use of force training, right? What Tuttle versus Oklahoma City teaches us. I personally don't think your program is going to be as viable for law enforcement as some other ones, right? Like coming in, looking at like ready positions. Yes, I get there's some ready positions that are incredibly quick, but when we look at the data and I can show you an over 100% decrease in mistake of fact shootings just by lowering the muzzle about 12 inches, which doesn't even put it where I think it needs to be. It's just lowering 12 inches. And I can drop mistake of fact shootings by over 100% based on research that we can shove in anybody's face. That's a huge thing that needs to be considered in the current environment. Because we know the other side's going to throw up some study from somebody who doesn't like the police. Well, when I can throw up a study that says this impacts decision making and this is why it was taught. Oh, cops are looking at research and data. Oh, that's a good idea.
And they're trying not to shoot the people that shouldn't be shot.
Yes.
That's one of the goals of this thing.
Yes.
And I'm like you. You and I have a different audience that we are responsible for, if that makes sense. I'm not discouraging people from going to Delta Ninja LERP competition shooting red dot instructor course. Like that's awesome. Like for the mechanics, but, and the same thing exists in the CQB world. Like teaching people to look just over their optic and everything that they do. Well, that leads to outcomes that have been proven that we can fix just through small training standards. We can, like you said, reduce unnecessary uses of force or inappropriate uses of force through simple training changes.
Yeah. So I'll give you one thing, right? A couple of years ago, there were some guys teaching optics at a national level. And word was getting out that they were talking about one of the benefits of the pistol mounted optic being that because you weren't focused on the front sight, you were looking at the threat, doing it that way would diminish mistake of fact shootings because you could tell if it was a gun or a wallet because you weren't focused on the front sight. Let me ask you this. If I'm looking through the optic, right, where's my muzzle pointed?
Right. Exactly my point.
And if I'm trying to make a don't shoot decision and I word it that way, with my muzzle pointed at the person, have I violated rule 2? And I'm not talking about this from a rule perspective, but now let's look at all these states that are wanting to talk about reportable uses of force.
Right.
And that muzzle on the dude's chest while I'm making a don't shoot decision, whether I shoot or not, is now a reportable use of force. And if I'm trying to make the decision with the gun up at eye level, I'm also losing a bunch of visual input where the hands and the waistband are. Right. So there's things that need to be taught in context of law enforcement and as well as decent human beings. Right. But that's not the specific point of what we're talking about.
Right. Exactly. And as you know, with me, everything comes back to constitutionality. And if we want because we don't, but if the citizenry is concerned about a federalized police or a militarized police, the way you get it is ignoring the things that you're talking about. The way that you get it is forcing centralized authority through inappropriate training mechanisms being applied to real circumstances. That's how you drive an actual militarized police that we don't want. So we have to, the foundation, but more importantly, the small individual agencies that don't have a pot to piss in, like we need to give them some resources or at least point them at some resources like the ones that you provide to be able to develop a curriculum that matches their community standards and the actual reality of the law and the Constitution. So I can't encourage law enforcement instructors and just officers uh, to come to you for some red dot training, especially if they haven't received formalized training yet. They should probably be starting with you.
Yeah.
And then if they want to go do the backflip ninja lerp red dot instructor course,
Yeah.
like knock it out, but you understand the contextual piece
Right.
that's required. So on that note, we'll free you up. But I really appreciate Eric in that context, guys. Visit CougarMountainSolutions.com. Check out Eric's schedule. Eric travels, so part of the reason for my personal reasons for wanting the foundation so bad is I got tired of rodeo driving from rodeo to rodeo.
Yep.
But I appreciate that you still do it. And guys, you guys really need to check them out. Also check them out on the socials. And if you're not subscribed to American Cop
It's
and you're a
free.
cop,
It's free.
it's cops. It's free. You guys are cops that you live for free stuff. And Eric edits it and it's phenomenal. Like he's still doing that magazine still exists and they're doing a great job. So if you're a cop especially, please find it's americancop.com, right?
AmericanCop.com. Or on
Sign up for
Instagram, it's American Cop _ magazine. So an
that's
American Cop
awesome.
on Facebook.
Yep. So the fact that like the fact that somebody can do a ninja roll and shoot a bill drill in under a second on Instagram is not a indicator of training value for the new cops out there who are just like they don't know any better. The old guys have a purpose, and I'm not old, of course, but Eric is. So
So
you should.
on that, remember our friend Jose Gordo?
Oh, of course. What an
Did you
awesome human.
catch his interview on Legends of the 75th?
No, but I need to find it. I
You
didn't
need
know
to
he
find
was
it.
on.
But I want to hit this one part of it. And please, I am not comparing myself to Jose. That dude's a national treasure.
He is.
But he made a comment about a bumper sticker that the guys at Asymmetric Warfare Group had. Our job is to make young soldiers old.
Yes. I love that.
And John, myself, some of our peers and friends, we got through. We came out the other end of the career. We're sharing stuff that allowed us to go from being young to old.
Yes.
And we're trying to pass that on.
Exactly. And that's really the purpose of the foundation is to try to create an organized way for the small guys who the only resource they have right now is Instagram, giving them some actual action item resources that they can use. Because you and I both know that making $15 an hour with two brand new babies and your wife's not working, being able to afford to come to something is a difficult ask. So, and the agencies, we're tracking pretty closely the national level budgets. The average Task Force 70 agency, so a small agency. I keep having to lay out all the explanation, but people know what I'm talking about. Hopefully by this point, the agencies with 12 or 10 or less officers, their average training budget is about 4% of their budget. And in 2025, 2026 fiscal year, the best estimate we can calculate is that's going to drop to about 1%.
Yeah.
So because funding is going away in a bunch of areas, and guys, get after it however you can. Just because you work in a small agency where nothing happens doesn't mean you're relieved of the responsibility of saving your community when it's necessary. So, Eric, I can't tell you how much I appreciate your time. Again, visit him at CougarMountainSolutions.com or AmericanCops.com or American Cop single P.
Yes.
.com. Check them out on Instagram, and it's American Cop _ magazine, right, on Instagram.
And Cougar_Mountain_solutions, and the backup page is Cougar Mountain Solutions, all one word. And I'm in the Book of Faces too, because I'm old.
Yeah, me too. Unfortunately, I kind of re-engaged there because of the foundation. Guys, you can find out about us at TF70.org. If you're willing to contribute to the cause, we really need it. We've got 3 mission pillars we're trying to fund we never take federal grant money for the reasons that we just spoke about avoiding federalization and the strings that come with it. We could really use your help. $20 a month, not asking a lot for some folks. We could really use it. There's some giveaways and benefits every month from that, and you're actually helping cops. The vast majority of that, all that money actually goes to serving the guys that need it. So if you visit us, we'd appreciate it. We're on all the socials and as well. And guys, we can't encourage you enough to check out Erick's training. So, Erick, we appreciate you very much.
Thank you, John.
And until next time, guys, we really appreciate you. We'll talk to you soon.